I'm going to give you my
Another accident. Here we go.
5 teams that I believe are most likely to break through and win their first ever Super Bowl. And at number 5 is where I put the Minnesota Vikings. I cannot dispute
Number
the fact,
5 is where you put them?
Number 5.
Okay.
I cannot dispute that they're a good team. I am not the biggest Kirk Cousins fan in the world. Now, I'd love for him to prove me wrong. They obviously had a terrific year last year. They ran the ball, and as you mentioned, they will get Dalvin Cook back. I think if he stays healthy last year, he would have been sensational. I loved him coming out of Florida State. And they've got a really good defense, but they play in a very, very tough division. I believe Green Bay is the team to beat in that division. So I don't think the Vikings are even the best team in their own division. Which brings us to number 4.
But wait, Greeny, so a team that got to the NFC Championship last year and had a chance to be in the Super Bowl, you have as the least best opportunity of top 5 teams.
Out of the top 5, I put them 5th.
Just because NFC overall is
I'm going to get to the main reason why I have these 2 teams where they are, because at number 4, I put the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, I think, are the best team of any team that is going to be on my list here. I'm concerned about the Julio Jones contract situation.
I agree.
But I have to believe they will get that sorted out. So long as they get Julio in and everyone is relatively happy with the way that turns out, they check all the boxes. They have an elite quarterback. They have unparalleled weapons. They have a reasonable defense. They have a sensational home field advantage. They lost on one play to Philadelphia last year in a playoff game. Otherwise, who knows what might have wound up happening with them. So I think the Falcons are the best team I'm going to put on this board. But here's the most important point I want to make before we go forward. The NFC is loaded, and mostly with teams that have won Super Bowl, so they're not on this list. But the Rams, I think, are a team that is on the come. The Eagles won the Super Bowl last year and should only have gotten better. Green Bay, people talk about being one of the most improved teams. And I could go on. The NFC, to me, is jammed. The AFC is wide open. And that's why my top 3 teams are all AFC teams. Not necessarily because I think they're better than Atlanta and Minnesota, but I think the AFC is easier to win. And at number 3, I'm taking a flyer on the Houston Texans. I've made it clear. I love Deshaun Watson. I love him. I absolutely love him. At the time that the Jets could have drafted him, I didn't want them to, and now I feel like an idiot for feeling that way. Now I'm happy with Sam Darnold, but let's not sidetrack the conversation. That guy you just saw, DeAndre Hopkins, is the most underappreciated player in the National Football League. He has done more with less at the quarterback position than any player in the sport. And if he gets a full season of Deshaun Watson healthy, I believe the Texans have an excellent chance to have a sensational season.
Only 2 teams have better odds in the AFC to win the Super Bowl, and that's the Steelers and the Patriots.
Okay,
so there you go.
Both of them have won a million Super Bowls.
Yes.
Beetle mentioned it. The Chargers are a sexy pick. People love them. The Chargers have got to figure out a way not to start slow. What the Chargers have done in the last few years is put themselves behind the 8 ball, and then they're trying desperately to claw their way back. In the second half of the season, they wind up falling 1 game short of getting into the playoffs. I am a Phillip Rivers fan. I am a believer. I think Rivers, who got drafted with Roethlisberger and Eli Manning, and at this point feels destined to be the one guy in that group never to go to a Super Bowl. I haven't given up on it. Now, the huge disadvantage they have is they have no home field advantage, right? They're playing 16 road games, basically, and that is a major disadvantage, but they're just too good not to take seriously. Speaking of which, at number 1, and I know what the question marks are, but I believe that outside of the quarterback position, the Jacksonville Jaguars might be the most talented team in the entire AFC.
Booyah.
But that leaves you with the huge the quarterback question is the huge question. So Blake Bortles, do we get the Bortles that we saw a little bit in the postseason last year, particularly in that game? They had New England on the ropes in the AFC Championship game. They went into Pittsburgh and put a whooping on the Steelers in a playoff game last year. That's a lot of experience to have grown from. That's a ridiculously talented young defense. You
make the internet shut down when you talk about the Jags. That's what you do, Greg.
My fundamental list is, so I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 1 on my list, again, based primarily on the fact that I believe the AFC is wide open for a surprise this year.
So your top 2 teams, Chargers and Jaguars, 2 questionable quarterbacks.
No, the Chargers do not have a questionable quarterback. Phillip Rivers is going to the Hall of Fame.
I understand, but you trust in Phillip Rivers in tumultuous times to pull through and get to the Super Bowl. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
You have that kind of trust in Phillip Rivers.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe Phillip Rivers. I said a minute
ago, he's a good quarterback. I don't know if he's a winning quarterback at that level.
Well, he hasn't won at that level, so I can't dispute that. I can't beat you with facts. but I do believe that he will rewrite that narrative. So that's my fundamental list, again, based primarily on my belief that the AFC is there to be won.